Debt is not dangerous. Ignorant debt is. In 2023, the average American carried over $6,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest. At the same time, billionaires borrowed billions at under 4% to buy assets that rise 10 to 15% a year. Same tool, different outcome. You were taught debt is bad. That belief might be the most expensive lesson you ever learned. Here's the part nobody explains. Debt is either a cage or a weapon, and most people were trained to fear the weapon. In the next few minutes, you'll see three things. First, the psychological trigger that makes smart people avoid leverage. Second, the hidden 1% rule the wealthy use to decide when debt becomes power. Third, how consumer systems are engineered to keep you in destructive debt while blocking you from strategic debt. By the end, you will never look at a loan the same way again. Write this down now. Debt is neutral. Structure decides the outcome. Let's break the illusion. Why you fear debt? You don't hate debt. You hate loss. This is called loss aversion. It means losing $1 hurts twice as much as gaining $1 feels good. Banks understand this. Schools reinforce it. Media amplifies it. So when you hear loan, your brain sees danger, not leverage. But here's the twist. Wealthy individuals don't ask, is debt risky? They ask, who carries the risk? That's the difference. Example, a person takes a $40,000 car loan at 8% interest. The car drops 20% in value the first year. That is consumption debt, negative asset, guaranteed depreciation, emotional purchase. Now compare that to someone who borrows $500,000 at 5% to acquire a cash-flowing property, returning 9%. The property pays the loan. The tenant carries the cost. Inflation erodes the debt. Same word, debt, opposite structure, and it gets worse. Most high-income earners never learn this distinction. The 1% rule. Here is the rule. If the asset generates more than the cost of debt consistently, and someone else contributes to repayment, it becomes strategic leverage. If not, it is extraction. Simple. Let's use clean numbers. Imagine you borrow $1 million at 6%. That costs you $60,000 per year. If that $1 million controls an asset generating $120,000 annually, you pocket the spread. That spread is power. This is called positive leverage. One-line explanation. When borrowed money earns more than it costs, the difference builds wealth. Rewind that if needed. Now flip it. Credit card at 22%, no asset, no cash flow, just consumption. That is negative leverage. One drains, 0.1 multiplies. The wealthy obsess over spread. Most people obsess over payment size. That's the psychological trap. The trap. Why you were trained wrong. Here's where most quit thinking. The financial system makes consumer debt easy. Car loans approved in minutes. Credit limits increased automatically. Buy now, pay later everywhere. But try borrowing $1 million to acquire a cash-flowing asset without experience. Different story. Because consumer debt feeds the machine. Strategic debt builds independence. And independence reduces control. This isn't conspiracy, that it's incentives. A high-income professional earning $120,000 might carry $35,000 car loan $12, 000 credit card balance $300, 000 mortgage on a lifestyle home. They feel successful, but none of those assets produce income. They produce status. This is hedonic adaptation. You get used to upgrades fast. Then you need bigger ones. Luxury brands exploit dopamine. Banks monetize impatience. Meanwhile, ultra-wealthy individuals often avoid selling assets. Instead, they borrow against appreciating stock portfolios at 3 to 5%. Why sell and trigger taxes when you can borrow cheaply and keep the upside? That's structural advantage. And most people were never taught it. Power dynamics of debt. Debt is not about money. It's about control. If your income pays for liabilities, you must keep working. If assets pay your liabilities, you control time. That's the real currency. Consider this. An executive earning $250,000 per year. Net worth. $800,000. Lifestyle cost. $180,000 annually. High income. Low freedom. Now imagine someone with $5 million net worth generating 6% annually. That's $300,000 without active work. Lower stress, higher optionality. The difference isn't intelligence, it's structure. High earners often become Henrys. High earners, not rich yet, because they scale consumption faster than asset control. And banks are happy to help. How the wealthy override the instinct. They separate ego from math. They delay lifestyle upgrades. They measure debt by spread, not size. Old money families teach this early. Never borrow for status. Only borrow for control. That's the mindset shift. They understand something simple. Inflation reduces fixed-rate debt over time. Assets tend to appreciate. Cash loses purchasing power. So they position themselves on the right side of that equation. They think in decades, not billing cycles. Write this down. If the debt funds an asset that compounds, consider it. If it funds consumption, question it. If it funds status, avoid it. This is not about taking reckless loans. It's about understanding leverage as a strategic instrument. Just like fire. Controlled, it cooks your food. Uncontrolled, it burns your house. You were told debt equals danger. That belief protects lenders. But knowledge changes position. The 1% rule is simple. Borrow when the structure transfers risk away from you and the spread works in your favor. Avoid debt that depends entirely on your salary. Because your salary is fragile. Assets can work while you sleep. You cannot. If you want to master wealth psychology, not just income, you need to understand these structural games. Study the structure. Because money isn't just earned, it's engineered.